What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have a fun Dialga EX, Bronzong and Skarmory build in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build, which you can see on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why they play well with each other. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Without further ado, let's talk about this Dialga EX, Bronzong, and Skarmory deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. First, let's talk about some of the cards. Of course, the centerpiece is going to be Dialga EX. Dialga EX is extremely powerful in Pokemon TCG Pocket right now. It's used in a lot of various decks. And of course, Dialga, even in this deck alone, can be the staple, and you can substitute out a couple of Pokemon in this deck and make just as good, if not a better deck. But I wanted to do something with Bronzong because I actually really like the move Psychic, but I'll get into that in a sec. So let's talk about Dialga EX. The first, it has Metallic Turbo, which is what makes Dialga EX great. A Metallic Turbo for 2 Metal Energy is going to deal 30 damage to your enemy, but the cream of the crop for this move is that you take 2 Metallic Energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. So you can really turbocharge your benched Pokemon with this move, regardless of if you have another Dialga on the bench, regardless of if you have your Bronzor or your Bronzong on the bench or your Skarmory. You can really turbocharge any Pokemon you have on the bench. So Dialga EX is absolutely a staple to turbocharge the rest of this deck. It also has a harder hitting damage move with Heavy Impact, dealing 100 damage for 4 energy, 2 of metal, and 2 colorless. But this is a metal deck with metal energy, so you're not going to have to worry about the energy colors or what type of energy you need. It's just going to be metal. That's okay. 4 energy for 100 isn't great. There are EX Pokemon in the game that deal 100 damage for 3 energy, so that's not insanely great. What does make it okay is that if you have a Dialga in the active slot and one on the bench, you can turbocharge and make it a little bit easier to build up that energy. So it's not great, but at the end of the day, if you have 2 Dialga EXs, you can kind of turbocharge each other and have that a little lessen the burden of building up those 4 energy. So next, let's talk about the Skarmory, because honestly, the Skarmory is amazing when paired with Dialga EX. And pretty much any metal deck in general. Skarmory has 1 move for 1 Metallic Energy, and it's Metal Arms. Now, initially, this deals 20 damage. However, if Skarmory has a Pokemon tool attached to it, it deals 30 more damage. That is insanely powerful to start out a match. If you can draw your Skarmory early and also draw a Pokemon tool early, that's going to be insanely crucial to easily defeating your enemy. Now, of course, your opponent can start with various different basic Pokemon in that active slot. But if it's not an EX Pokemon, it's not going to have a lot of HP. There are a lot of basic Pokemon in the game that have 60 HP, 80 HP, and there are some that actually have 50 HP. So you might be able, if you're lucky enough, to get a 1-hit KO right off the start of the battle if you're lucky enough to pull Skarmory, a tool, and have your opponent have a Pokemon, a basic Pokemon that only has 50 HP. So this can be crucial to turning the tide of battle, especially because it doesn't rely on anything your opponent does. It's just going to rely on what you're able to draw, if you are able to draw that Pokemon tool with your Skarmory. Skarmory is fantastic in a lot of metal decks, and it's insanely powerful in this metal deck when paired up with Dialga EX and Bronzong. So now let's talk about Bronzong. So why Bronzong? A lot of people are going to ask why Bronzong. There are probably 100 other combinations that this deck can have apart from Bronzong. So why Bronzong? Unique. You don't see a lot of Bronzong decks. You don't see Bronzong in general. 2, I really like the move Psychic. If y'all saw my Gengar deck, I have a Jinx in that deck that also has Psychic, and Psychic is an extremely powerful move. Very soon I'm going to be coming out with an Alakazam deck, and Alakazam also has Psychic. So let's talk about Psychic, and let's talk about Bronzong Psychic. So the Bronzong in this deck requires 3 colorless energy. Now this Bronzong you're going to get from Triumphant Light, so just be aware of that there are multiple Bronzongs in the game right now. This one, where it has Psychic for 3 colorless energy, is in Triumphant Light. Psychic deals 50 damage. However, the attack does 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. That can be insanely powerful depending upon the Pokemon you're facing. There are a lot of EX Pokemon that require a lot of energy. So you can deal an insane amount of damage to some of those Pokemon with Psychic and your opponent having a lot of energy equipped. Let's just take Dialga for example, since Dialga EX is in this deck. Dialga requires 4 energy for its beefy move. So that 4 energy multiplied by 20 is going to be 80 damage in additional to the 50 damage that Bronzong is already doing. So Bronzong against a fully powered up Dialga EX is going to deal 130 damage. That's insanely powerful for a Pokemon that requires only 1 evolution and is only going to cost you 1 point if it does go down. So that's awesome to have either mid to late game as your mid to late game sweeper, because you can deal an insane amount of damage to Pokemon that have a lot of energy equipped on them. You can weaken some of those powerful Pokemon, so your Dialga EX can finish the game off, come in, and finish the sweep. Or, at the end of the game, maybe your opponent already has all of this energy already equipped. Your Bronzong can be that late game sweeper. Maybe the opponent's already injured, can come in and sweep the final of the game. It's extremely powerful even against a Pokemon like Celebi combined with Serperior, because that double up that Serperior gives to Celebi also affects Psychic. So while the opponent thinks their strategy being implemented with doubling up the energy on Celebi is great, they get more coin flips, it's only powering up Bronzong and any other Pokemon that has Psychic. So I love that as well about Bronzong and Psychic in general, that Psychic decks or Psychic move decks, not Psychic type, but Psychic move decks are extremely powerful against Celebi decks. It's a very good counter to them because Celebi is trying to build up as much energy as possible, and Psychic, the more energy on your opponent, you're just going to wreak havoc. That's what I love. Now let's talk about the rest of this build outside of the Pokemon that we just talked about. Professor's Research and Pokeball, I've mentioned it in my videos before, but let me mention it again. They're crucial to getting your Pokemon in your hand. You don't want to be at the end of the match with 3 or 4 cards left and it be one of the cards you absolutely need. So, of course, Those are going to help you get to your basic Pokemon and your other cards quicker. Giovanni is absolutely fantastic because he can help do early damage or help get over some breaking points. I already mentioned that Skarmory with a tool can deal 50 damage. Well, if you've played this game for a little while, you'll know that there are a lot of basic Pokemon that have 60 HP. So if you're able to pull a Giovanni with the tool and Skarmory, you're going to be able to deal that 60 damage and hopefully one-hit KO that Pokemon in that active slot extremely quickly. Bronzong, I just mentioned, being able to deal 130 damage. 4 energy equipped on a Pokemon, that's going to give you 80 extra damage plus 50, that's 130, which is great, but there are a lot of EX Pokemon that have 140 HP. But with Giovanni, it's going to get you to that 140 HP that you need to take out some of those EX Pokemon with one hit. So that's extremely awesome as well. Giovanni is going to help you get over some of those breaking points a little bit easier, and also going to help you deal some extra damage to take out your opponent's Pokemon quicker. Leaf is obvious in this deck. If you're starting out with Dialga, it does require a few energy to retreat. So you're going to be able to save that energy on your Dialga that you built up instead of getting rid of the energy if you decide to put in Skarmory or Bronzong and let Dialga sit on the bench while your Bronzong or Skarmory, since it can deal a lot of damage, is damaging, weakening your opponent's Pokemon. So Dialga may be able to come in and get you the sweep. I like Cyrus in this deck so Pokemon can't hide on the bench. We already know that Skarmory, as I mentioned, can deal a lot of damage. If you face an EX Pokemon right off the rip that has a lot of HP, you end up dealing 50 or 60 damage to it. Your opponent may want to hide that EX Pokemon on the bench, while Cyrus is going to be a great tool to not let your opponent hide that Pokemon. Sabrina is always nice to have just in case. Maybe there's a Pokemon in the active slot you don't want to face, such as Druddigon. I hate facing Druddigon. Or maybe there's a Pokemon equipped with a tool, such as Rocky Helm, that you don't want to face. Sabrina is nice for getting those Pokemon out of the active slot, so we don't have to worry about those Pokemon. The tools are obvious. We need tools on our Skarmory, so I have a Giant Cape and a Rocky Helm, because each have their place in this game. Obviously, Giant Cape on Skarmory is nice, gets it to 100 HP, or if you don't equip that on your Skarmory because you have the Rocky Helm on your Skarmory, you can equip it on Dialga. There are a couple of strong EX Pokemon that deal 150 damage. Giant Cape will help get you over that breaking point so you're not one-hit KO'd, so that's nice as well. If you do want to substitute out some of the cards, maybe you want to substitute out Giovanni so you can add a couple of more tools, I wouldn't mind that. Of course, there are a lot of different variations of this deck that you can do that absolutely work extremely well, so I wouldn't mind doing that as well. I just like Giovanni because I have the possibility of maybe one-hit KOing right off the rip with my Skarmory, or just dealing a little bit extra damage later in the game. But I wouldn't mind going with an extra Giant Cape and Rocky Helm in place of the 2 Giovannis. And if you want to try that, I definitely recommend it. It'll work well doing that too. There are a lot of different ways that Dialga EX and Skarmory can be combined. I can see a few that I'm going to come out with. I'm going to try and combine these two with Wigglytuff. I'm going to try and combine these two with Licky Licky because I think those decks can work well. But I wanted to try Bronzong because Psychic can be an extremely powerful move. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck build. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you like different Pokemon variations a little bit better? Who have you been pairing up with Dialga EX? Let me know in the comments section. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. And until next time, peace.